Both Hillary Clinton and Mike Pence were in Colorado this week. Clinton visited the Knotty Tie Company and spoke at a rally in Adams County. Meanwhile, Mike Pence, the Republican VP nominee, was at a rally in downtown Denver on the same day he endorsed Speaker Paul Ryan in his primary race. Patty, a lot of the national pundits keep talking about that Colorado's no longer in play, but the candidates just keep on coming. What do you think?
Well, and Trump is coming back on Tuesday. Last week, Trump was just coming to town as we taped the show, and things went fairly uneventfully, except Trump said he was taking the gloves off, and then he kept getting swamped with gloves all weekend as this Khan family, that scandal kept going, and Trump kept tweeting and kept fighting. So since it looks like he's lost like at least 10 points in most polls since we sat here last week. I don't know if he's going to make up anything when he goes to Pueblo and Grand Junction, but Hillary didn't hurt herself when she was here. She went to the Knotty Tie Company, which was something she touted on in her DNC speech because they make ties here as opposed to Trump's company. She went to Adams County, big week for Adams County, and there were some protesters, just as there were for Trump, but she seemed to acquit herself pretty well. And Pence did his candidacy no harm. He seems to be the apologist, so he will endorse the Republicans because Trump doesn't seem able to do so.
Even asked by young people on the campaign trail if he's the apologist. That's certainly accurately stated. David, we keep seeing the candidates come to Colorado, but it feels like the real barometer of interest in a state is campaign spending, actually buying some ads. That has slowed to a trickle, if anything. Does that seem like an odd juxtaposition to you?
Yeah, it's Hillary, I think, was here to kind of put it away. And Trump is continuing the fiction that he's a guy who has a chance to win Colorado. You follow the money. Hillary's pulling her money out, advertising money out of Colorado, big cut in it, and putting it into places where, thanks to Donald the loser, states like Georgia that shouldn't be competitive, she's now ahead by 4 points. So that to the extent he raises money, he's going to have to spend it just to hold down places like Georgia or Texas and not even have a chance in what can be a swing state in Colorado. If Mike Pence were at the top of the ticket, he'd be leading nationally by 10 points in the polls and would have a really good chance to win Colorado. Donald the choker said recently he doesn't understand how he's not ahead in the polls because he gets all these large crowds at rallies. Well, Hillary got a large crowd. The school held 3,000, and she got every seat filled in there, and thousands more turned away. Mitt Romney had a huge crowd at Red Rocks and turned Interstate 70 into a parking lot just before the election, and he still lost Colorado. So having a rally isn't the only thing, although it kind of is in Donald's mind. In the past 2 weeks, he's broken the tie because reasonable voters would say they're both complete lying crooks who are going to run the government in a way to take bribes from foreign dictatorships. And it's what, do you want to have the Gulf states or Russia controlling the country? That's the choice. But he broke that tie because besides those things where they're equal, he'll be the more annoying. Hillary's just as, I think, mentally off balance and deeply disturbed as a character, but she has the self-control to shut up about it most of the time. She only told one enormous, preposterous lie in the last week that James Comey, the FBI director, had said that she'd been entirely truthful with the American people, which itself was a flagrant lie. But that's only one per week compared to what Donald Dumpf did in the past week, which was more than one per day. So if you don't want to be annoyed on television all the time, at least she'll be quieter and just have that annoying speaking style rather than ridiculous statements every 14 hours, which a President Trump would create. Hence, she's less annoying than him. Now her big lead in the polls.
Definitely a new definition of playing the rope-a-dope, I guess, just shutting up and going from there. Eric, Trump will be coming to Colorado next week on the heels of a headline of today's Denver Post talked about Muslim workers winning a major decision with the Colorado Department of Labor being able to get benefits back for being fired after taking prayer breaks. You smell a headline?
Oh, who knows what Donald Trump's going to do next Tuesday in Pueblo or Grand Junction. And his strategy, it's not a strategy. The strategy is giving him more credit. I think it's just a personality trait. I'm starting to understand why he invested so heavily in Atlantic City casinos, because the only move he really knows is to double down. Any other politician, when you're caught going down a bad path, you walk it back. You change the subject. Donald Trump, it's all in, all chips in, every day, every issue, and it's constantly doubling down. I'm trying to rack my political memory to remember a candidate having a worse 2 weeks or even a worse single week than Donald Trump has had over the last week. It was 2 weeks ago yesterday that the convention ended in Cleveland. He had a bounce in the polls, and you knew that bounce was going to be counteracted by a bounce coming out of the Democratic convention, but he still had a decent-sized bounce in the polls. It looked like he was in a horse race. The two of them were in a horse race. And now the thing looks more or less over. And David's point is right, where they're contesting states like Georgia and Arizona and Missouri that have been solidly red states for a long, long time. Now, and even if they still end up being red states in November, just the fact that they're in play, and that's where Trump is going to have to put some time, and more importantly, that's where the Democrats are investing, says everything. I don't think this is a 15-point race, which is what some polls have shown it recently, but the lead is blown open. The critical polls historically in presidential races are the ones after both parties' conventions, a week to two after. That sort of sets in place what the playing field is. And yes, it can move, but it tends not to move a lot. Is Colorado a purple state these days? Color me very dubious. I think we're a blue state. The real test will be not are they coming to Colorado in August, are they coming here in October? Color me very doubtful. Trump has always had a very narrow path to an electoral college majority. And the Republicans have talked for a long time that they had to almost draw, going back to card terms, an inside straight to pull this off, given all the factors that are lined up against a Republican presidential candidate. And I mean, with Donald Trump, I mean, the news of the day is everyone calling for him to exit the race. How many Republicans on a daily basis are endorsing against him? The whole thing is falling apart, and you had to see it coming, and anyone who didn't see it coming, there was some willful ignorance in my mind.
Penn, should we enjoy the attention from the national candidates now, because it's going to be pretty lonely come the next few weeks?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The candidates are coming here now, Hillary to lock in Colorado, Donald to make it look like he's campaigning nationally. I'm not quite certain what he's doing. He's running around from state to state, pretty much embarrassing himself and insulting anybody who comes within a certain radius of him. I just find it fascinating that now we've reached a point where you have sitting Republican congresspeople endorsing Hillary Clinton and saying they're going to vote for her, which would have just been unthinkable a year ago. You have the Pence, who's the VP nominee, and you knew he was selected to try to give an air of reality and credibility to Donald Trump, to give the appearance that he was going to try to govern and try to pay attention to issues and try to do things in Washington. Even that impression is gone. You've got Pence, who can't say, I'm not going to endorse him, but he's basically running around. He is the apologist, and he's doing all but that because he's saying, you know, I'm going to endorse Paul Ryan. I'm going to endorse John McCain because I know these people, I've served with them, I like them, and I think they're good Republicans, which implicitly is telling Donald Trump, I don't know, you're not even a bad Republican. I don't know what you are. But at this point, Pence is kind of stuck. And I'll bet if he could rewind this 60 days, he'd probably, you know, look at himself and say, there's no way if I'm asked that I would do this. Let Newt Gingrich figure out how to put some lipstick on this pig, but this baby's over. And it's getting worse. And it's really beginning to dishearten Americans. It's already distracted and distressed the rest of the world. But I think Americans are really becoming disheartened and thinking that, have we really become a country now where our presidential election is simply a bad traveling reality show?